Iran and its apologists in the West thought it had all the cards. It had the ultimate insurance policy, control over a 21-mile choke point, starving the world of 20% of its oil supply. It had a rig of regional proxy armies like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, militias in Iraq and Syria, ready to make anyone who touched Iran bleed. A hail of missiles falling on Gulf Arab states designed to make them beg U.S. and Israeli forces to stop. But one by one, every single one of those cards, to the horror of the skeptics and doubters in the legacy media, every single one has collapsed. President Trump has pulled off the unimaginable. Stick with me to the very end of this video because I'm going to break down exactly how Iran has been completely encircled militarily, economically, and diplomatically, and what just happened that promises to be the most decisive blow to the Iranian regime in 47 years. You're not going to want to miss this. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Let's start with the military encirclement because what just happened in the Gulf really is one of the most extraordinary geopolitical maneuvers of the 21st century. And almost nobody's connecting the dots. On April 10th, Pakistan deployed 13,000 elite troops and 10 to 18 JF-17 Thunder Block 3 fighter jets to King Abdulaziz Air Base in Saudi Arabia's eastern province. That base sits roughly 60 kilometers from the Abqaiq oil processing facility. That's the largest crude oil stabilization plant on the planet and just a stone's throw away from the Iranian border. Pakistan also brought ZDK-03 AWACS, early warning aircraft and mid-air refueling tankers, meaning that this isn't just a symbolic gesture. This is a full-spectrum air defense deployment. In fact, this is the largest Pakistani military deployment to Saudi Arabia since the first Gulf War back in 1991. And it was authorized under a mutual defense agreement signed between Riyadh and Islamabad back in September of last year. So think about what that means for Iran. So to the west, Saudi Arabia, now with Pakistani air power. To the east, the U.S. Fifth Fleet. To the south, UAE and Bahrain hosting F-35s, Patriot batteries, and THAAD systems. To the north, Turkey in NATO's orbit. I mean, Iran isn't just under pressure. Iran is completely boxed in on every side. Now, that's just the military dimension. There's an energy dimension to all of this as well. This was supposed to be Iran's ultimate insurance policy, right? Their control over the Strait of Hormuz, holding 20% of the world's energy supply hostage. This is where it gets masterful. On April 12th, Saudi Arabia announced that its east-west Petroline pipeline has been fully restored to maximum capacity. So we're talking 7 million barrels per day flowing west across the Arabian Peninsula to the Red Sea port of Yanbu, completely bypassing the Strait of Hormuz entirely. Iran had struck Saudi pipeline infrastructure with drones and missiles in early April, temporarily knocking out roughly about 700,000 barrels per day of throughput. Saudi Arabia repaired that in literally just a matter of days. And since late February, when Iran's Hormuz blockade began, Saudi Arabia had already quadrupled crude shipments from its Red Sea terminals. So they were ready. They anticipated this, and they built around Iran before Iran even knew what was happening. And it's not just Saudi Arabia, because right next door is the UAE. There's another bypass pipeline there that's been quietly humming along that almost nobody's talking about. It's the Habshan-Fujairah pipeline, 380 kilometers of buried infrastructure running from Abu Dhabi's interior oil fields straight to the Gulf of Oman port of Fujairah at a capacity of 1.5 to 1.8 million barrels per day. And here's the part that's absolutely mind-blowingly ironic here. That pipeline, I kid you not, that pipeline was built by Chinese companies. specifically the CPECC, which is a subsidiary of China's state-owned CNPC, the China National Petroleum Corporation. China, if you don't know, China is Iran's most important ally in all of this. China is the regime's single biggest oil customer, buying 80% of Iran's exported crude. I mean, China was basically the chief financier of Iran. And in what's turning out to be the biggest backstab of them all, China built the very pipeline infrastructure that allows the Gulf states to route their oil around the Strait of Hormuz and completely neutralize the one card Tehran thought it had. You can't make this stuff up. In trying to weaponize Hormuz, Iran incentivized its own neighbors with Chinese labor and Chinese capital to render Hormuz irrelevant. That's not just strategic failure, gang. That is civilizational self-destruction. And if you could believe it, it gets even worse. China gets 40% of all of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz. 40%. Every single day that Hormuz stays contested, China's industrial machine is squeezed. It's burning through reserves, and it's scrambling for alternatives. And guess where those alternatives are? America. American crude. American LNG. Tanker tracking data is already showing roughly 600,000 barrels per day of U.S. crude flowing to China. That's $10 billion a month at current prices. China's being forced, kicking and screaming, back to American energy markets. So think about the full picture that Trump has engineered here. He's simultaneously destroying Iran's nuclear program. He's eliminating its Hormuz leverage. He's encircling it with Gulf coalition forces, and he's forcing China to buy American oil. This is happening at the same time that Iran's military has been completely decimated and their armed proxies throughout the region completely neutralized. This isn't 4D. This isn't even 5D chess. This is civilizational jujitsu, and Trump is the grand master. But it gets even better. Because right now, this week, the most seismic development of all is unfolding in Washington, D.C., and it involves Lebanon. On April 13th and 14th, Israeli and Lebanese envoys held their first direct, high-level diplomatic talks since 1993 in over 30 years, brokered by the United States, particularly Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Both sides agreed to begin formal and official peace negotiations, and here's the deal that should make every Iran watcher's jaw drop. The Lebanese government has reportedly offered Israel extensive cooperation in totally neutralizing Hezbollah as part of a prospective deal. Remember, the Lebanese government officially declared Hezbollah a banned organization in Lebanon, but their military is not necessarily enforcing that ban. Well, now that government, that Lebanese government, will work together with Israel to fully and finally eradicate them. And you've just got to let that sink in. Lebanon, Hezbollah's home, right? The country that for decades served as the launch pad for Iran's most powerful non-state military force. That very country is now offering to help dismantle Hezbollah in exchange for peace and normalization with Israel. So this holds Lebanon would become the latest nation to join the Abraham Accords framework, following the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco, and others. And unlike every previous Abraham Accords signatory, Lebanon's entry would come with something none of the others could possibly offer: the surgical removal of Iran's most sophisticated regional proxy. Remember, Hezbollah was not just a militia. It was Iran's deterrent force. It was the gun Iran held to Israel's northern border. 150,000 rockets pointed at Tel Aviv, Haifa, Jerusalem. The threat that was supposed to make any attack on Iran too costly to contemplate. That's what Lebanon signified. That deterrent is already severely degraded after the 2024-2025 conflict that killed senior Hezbollah leadership, including Hassan Nasrallah. But a formal Lebanon-Israel peace deal and Abraham Accords normalization, I mean, that would institutionally dismantle whatever's left. Iran wouldn't just lose a proxy army, it would lose the concept of that northern front against Israel forever. So now let's zoom out and see the full strategic picture here, just how astonishing this 5D chess mastery really is. Iran built its regional power on 4 pillars. Its nuclear program, its Hormuz leverage, its proxy network, and its alliance with China and Russia. These are the fundamental reasons why Iran was thought to be unassailable. All 4 of these pillars are what Western apologists for Iran repeatedly invoked to claim that there was absolutely no way America could win this war. Well, let's go through them one by one, shall we? The nuclear program, obliterated by U.S. and Israeli strikes. Everyone admits that. Hormuz leverage, gone, completely gone. Bypass by Saudi and UAE pipelines, swept clean by the U.S. Navy, and now actively helping American energy exports, all as American naval forces are blockading Iran. No one saw that. The regional proxy network, the Houthis are under relentless bombardment. Iraqi militias have been largely defanged. Assad is gone in Syria. Syria is now pro-Saudi, pro-American. And now Lebanon is at a peace table meeting in Washington, D.C., offering to fully and finally neutralize Hezbollah together with Israel. And finally, the China-Russia backstop. I mean, Russia's completely consumed with its own war in Ukraine, its own economic survival. And China, as we just showed, is actually being squeezed into buying American oil, all the while providing the very infrastructure to bypass Hormuz and take away any remaining card Iran might have. Every single pillar has been knocked out from under this regime simultaneously in a matter of weeks. This is what the Abraham Accords architecture was always designed to produce. It was never just about peace treaties and handshakes. It was about building a Sunni Israeli-American axis that would eventually squeeze the Iranian revolutionary model into irrelevance. And it is working. And it's working faster than anyone could have ever predicted. More completely than anyone could have dared to hope. Iran is not just losing a war. Iran is losing the very world it built. Every proxy weakened, every choke point bypassed, every card taken off the table. The regime thought that they had built an unassailable empire. Well, that empire just met its match, and it's collapsing right before our very eyes.